Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, as always, it's an honor to stand in this august house, and I stand on the shoulders of the members of the district, the peoples of the district of Scarborough Mount Grace. Madam Presiding Officer, I'm going to take leave to read parts of my speech, so I'm going to stand on 42.7. 42.7, yeah.
Approval has been granted.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, this is a critical time for the people of Tobago. We may have, at this juncture in our history, one final opportunity to get this thing right. And while I hear my colleague from Darrow Spring Wim and Roxborough Argyle insist on consultative processes, I want to caution the people of Tobago to remember that this is not a new thing. We have been here and we are standing on the shoulders of Bigart, Robinson, Hotroy, all the way up to Mr. London, who've brought this process to where it is. And we need now to get it right. And like I said, one final opportunity we may have. Madam Presiding Officer, if we are to look to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago and its historical treatment of Tobago's quest for self-determination as an indication of the Parliament's intent towards Tobago, we will have to conclude that the Parliament's intention has been to continually deny Tobago and Tobagonians of our God-given, United Nations recognized, inalienable constitutional human right to self-determination and our freedom to determine our own destiny. As a Ghanaian, this is a hard and bitter pill to swallow, but it is simply a history. It is our history, and we must confront it if we are to distill the pledge of improved collaboration with the THA that has been made by the new government. The unavoidable requirement of this improved collaboration is firstly to analyze the treatment of Tobago's self-determination in a mostly Trinidadian parliament and to use this understanding to create a roadmap to finally deliver on this most important thing that is central to the need for the majority of Tobagonians, this thing we call self-determination. Madam Presiding Officer, if I am to give a title to my contribution today, it will be Truth, Reconciliation, and Action. We must remind ourselves that at the British Parliament, the Trinidad and Tobago Act of 1987 and the 1988 Order in Council uniting the colony of Trinidad and the colony of Tobago both recognized the desire, and I use desire in quote unquote, of Tobago, because it was not a true desire, but a desire as mounted by representatives in England, the desire of Tobago to unite with Trinidad. However, in its final act as a standalone colony, On the eve of the commencement date of the union with Trinidad, the Legislative Council of the Tobago House of Assembly, yes, this Tobago House of Assembly, passed a motion which reads as follows. And I am hoping that my brethren in Trinidad are listening to this. That inasmuch as the wish of the people of Tobago for union with Trinidad has principally been based on the representation of the government, meaning the British government required that Tobago be joined with Trinidad, and the assurances given to the people that material benefits will result to Tobago from such a union, the Secretary of State for the Colonies be respectfully asked, in the event that such union taking place, to afford the people, meaning the people of Tobago, a pledge that should it prove disadvantageous to the colony of Tobago, I'm going to paraphrase it, if the union proves disadvantageous to the colony of Tobago or otherwise undesirable to the majority of inhabitants of this Tobago colony, on petition, have granted back to it the form of self-government which now exists here. In the final act, possibly in this very house, the Council of the Tobago House of Assembly passed a motion to reserve the right to leave the Union of Trinidad and Tobago as a separate island and people if the union proved to be disadvantageous or undesirable to Tobago and Tobagonians. Tobago and its Tobagonians since 1887, 1888, signal its intention not just to retain its distinct, unique identity, but also the right to determine whether it would remain in the union with Trinidad. And that is because a union cannot be recognizable except its constituent parts are recognizable. We have, as Tobagonians, been lost in this union, depending on a Trinidad Parliament to determine for us how we should walk, how we should talk, how we should fly, how we should go to the beach, how we should mine our energy resources. We have become lost and unrecognizable. That is why when the chief moved the motion, he could quote newspapers from back in 1962 that suggest that Tobago was subsumed into Trinidad. Truth number one. We must accept that the 1966, the 1962 and 76 constitutions, the THA Acts of 1980 and 1996, all recognized Tobago and Tobagonians as a distinct, unique people within the country of Trinidad and Tobago that has always had the right to self-determination. And in trying to make the reconciliation, we must remind ourselves that consistent with internationally accepted definitions, Tobago and Tobagonians shared origins, history, culture, traditions, language, intrinsic spiritual values do not only give us a distinct identity, but that these features, in combination with our shared geographical homeland of the island of Tobago, defines not just a unique and distinct people, but also a nation. And that is according to Stanford University Encyclopedia of Philosophy. That distinct and uniqueness is what makes us into a nation. And this distinction was approved by Britain in granting self-determination to Trinidad and Tobago in 1962. And it was duplicated in the 1976 Constitution at Section 1, Part 2. And that says, quote, that Trinidad and Tobago is made up of the island of Trinidad and its dependencies, and the island of Tobago and its dependencies. Two nations, two colonies being brought together by Britain to form one. Nowhere in the Constitution, I heard the minority leader talking about this unity that they keep talking about. Nowhere in the Constitution says that Trinidad and Tobago is a unitary state. Nowhere. Trinidad and Tobago is a sovereign, democratic state according to the Constitution. And there for years since President, what's his name? Ellis Clark and Prime Minister Eric Williams been attempting to subsume Tobago into this idea of a unitary state governance model that takes away our rights. In attempting to reconcile these truths, past Tobagonians insisted on the right to self-determination, not just for itself, but also for Trinidad and the Union of Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. It is something we may not be aware of or be able to simply infer from our understanding of the history. But this is how it went. Prior to 1989, Tobago was used to having an elected government. He remembers that Belmana's riot speech had word for word. I heard we had an elected government prior to this union. When we became part of the union, Tobago was faced with an appointed legislative council in Trinidad. Something completely foreign, something completely alien to Tobago and Tobagonians. Because of this, Tobago outrightly refused to send a nominee to be appointed to the Legislative Council. I'm going to go slow with this. So that seat, that one seat in the Legislative Council, which was 1 out of 7, I believe, remained empty from 1889 to 1923, when the British government then made legal provisions for elections to be held to the Legislative Council. Because of Tobago's decision not to send a nominated representative, the Parliament of Britain decided that, you know what, let me change this thing. And we have been at the forefront of ensuring democracy in this nation, as we are here today at the forefront, getting rid of the PNM and showing our brothers in Trinidad the way forward. And so that is what Tobago.
Assemblyman James, one moment, please. We are now at the 4:30 benchmark where we are supposed to have lunch. Leader of Assembly Business.
Madam Presiding Officer, I beg to move that this House remains seated until all business on the order paper are dealt with.
Honorable members, the question put is that this House remains seated until all business on the order paper are dealt with. All in favor say aye. Any against say nay? The ayes have it. This House shall remain seated until the business of the order paper is completed. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. So it is because of Tobago's action that Trinidad and Tobago began to develop a form of democracy through elected representation in the House in Trinidad. It was because that seat remained vacant, therefore no representative from Tobago. I want to get to this point of this ward business that that the representative for Roxborough Delaford keeps talking about. Roxborough Argyle. Government of Britain to have an election to the House, and then we joined the House, and in those 30-what years, Tobago still functioned as an independent colony. This is critical, especially for the young people to understand. Even after the Union, Tobago, for those years when we had no representative in Port of Spain, still functioned as an independent colony. When the first ship came to Tobago after 1923, it's then that Tobago began to be subsumed by Trinidad, because they began to see this Tobago was functioning. We can have that. And so Trinidad decided that we have to form a management, we have to develop a management structure to control Tobago. And that is how these systems of counties and wards in the governance model of Trinidad and Tobago came into being. So now Tobago was managed as a ward under the counties, and Tobago was actually under the ward of one of the counties in Trinidad. And from there, they were able to merge Tobago's revenue, Tobago's expenditure, and Tobago's debt as part of this now Trinidad and Tobago financial management model. And that is all that it is. Because we insisted, we paid the penalty from those in Port of Spain to be managed in that way. And so up to today, all our resources are subsumed into Trinidad. All our oil and gas resources from that are subsumed into Trinidad. All our foreign exchange that people want to travel to Tobago through ticket percentages subsumed into Trinidad. All our taxes from companies, whether it be state or private, subsumed into Trinidad. And nobody in this house could say what the real tax collection is today for commerce in Tobago. Isn't that something? Imagine now, here we are, standing in this house and having to fight political cycle after political cycle for self-determination, when we were at the forefront, giving Trinidad and Tobago self-determination. From an individual colony in 1988 to a united colony in 1989, to the county council within the united colony from 1945 to the request to the British Parliament for independence in 1962. We are here again, demonstrating our desire for self-determination. I just want to stick a pin with this request for independence, which is actually self-determination that Trinidad and Tobago went with the minority leader trying to change the words of the chief secretary. Trinidad and Tobago went to Britain for self-determination because the West Indies Federation failed in January of 1962. Jamaica pulled out, and you know, Eric say, 1 from 10 leaves 0. The West Indian Federation failed, and interestingly enough, whether Kapil Dev was there or not, it took the British Parliament 6 months from January of 1962 and the request by the leaders of Trinidad and Tobago to come up with a constitution for Trinidad and Tobago and to grant Trinidad and Tobago full, unfettered self-determination. 6 months. And we here talking that we must take little and live long and we must consult forever. 6 months. It took Singapore and Lee Kuan Yew 5 years in total to get to independence for Singapore. How long we here? This theater is 44 years, but before that, we had APT 200 years. We had APT after not being able to get a dime from Port of Spain, having to go to England himself to make representation for Tobago. People say he walked barefoot in London. This is where we are. And we're still talking from that side that we must wait or we must take what little they give. We want it now. We have no more time to wait. The Chief Secretary daughter now 2 years. We have no more time to wait. We want it now. And it is our right to get it. And to my brothers in the Parliament, I want to say to you that you must prove yourself to be better than the white man in England. Don't hide no more behind who is PNM and who is UNC and who is whatever. We Trinidad and Tobago, don't mind they didn't include me when they go. We went to Britain in the home of colonial rule and got self-determination, got the ability. You know, I hear people talking that we must accept these London bills and we must have it entrenched in the Constitution. None of that. When self-determination is being considered, it is the self-determined people who will amend their own constitution, not nobody else. Why we must submit ourselves to a document that even ain't come from us? What is it? What is it about this Tobago? What is it about this Tobago that people in Port of Spain feel that they must just dominate us? What is it? We have gold, we have rock, we have oil, we have gas, and a man tell me, I don't know if it's true, that possibly we have natural gas on the ground and roundly cover it up below the airport tarmac. Yeah. You know if it's true? Why? Why they must continue? Why they must continue to subjugate us? So I want to call on the government, on the Parliament, on the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, as we welcome the opening of the new Parliament tomorrow. I want to call on the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago to remind the members that Dr. Eric Williams and Sir Ellis Clark petitioned the British colonials with a draft constitution in hand. We have, how much draft we have? There was 6 now. We have a draft from Robinson and Murray. We had a draft in 1996. We had a draft from, say, Mongol. We had a draft from the Prime Minister Bissessa. We had a draft from Orville London. We had a draft from Rowley. We had to play chess from now. And was granted, Trinidad and Tobago was granted self-determination.
Member, you have 3 minutes remaining.
In a process that took, thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, only months. They've been at this too long. Only months. And I want to implore the people of Trinidad and the parliamentarians of Trinidad to demonstrate, I'm repeating this, to demonstrate that you're better than the colonial white man and that you will treat the brothers in Tobago with dignity and respect and do the right thing and grant us, allow us to fulfill our destiny as self-determined people. It is the only way forward, and I want to remind Tobagonians, as I look up and I see Dr. Jeff Davison, I want to remind Tobagonians that we have been at this game before. We've had friendly governments in Port of Spain, and we've sat back and tried to negotiate behind the scenes and feel we go get what we're supposed to get. It didn't happen in 86 and 91 because Jeff remained quiet in Tobago and they nearly killed Robinson down there for building an airport and a seaport. We have 16 years off in London saying that he want peace across the waters and he going to negotiate because he have friends in Port of Spain, and we get nothing. Pretending to go around the country like a crazy man for 10 years to say that he consult. That lead to nothing. Then we have a smart man scoundrel in the Prime Minister office who orchestrate the crashing of the PNM, who orchestrate to have those bills amended to what to the folly that they are today. To say, as the mandatory is saying, that they participate and they want this. They never want it. That's true. Never want it. I want to end, I see the presiding officer watching me intently. I want to end by reading again. I don't want to say in the end of it or else, but I want to read it, that inasmuch as it was the wish of the governing people of Tobago to form a union with Trinidad, and that the assurances were given to the people of Tobago that material benefits will result to Tobago from the union. We hear the Secretary of Finance saying essentially we have no material benefit. We're getting chicken feed year after year after decade. Well, they take our gas and our oil. That material benefits will result to Tobago from such a union, that the Secretary of State for the Colonies from Britain be respectfully asked that in the event that the union...
Your time is up.
I thank you, Madam President.
Madam President, I beg to move that the speaking time of the goodly gentleman be extended by a further
2 minutes.
Sorry, this scaramouche. Sorry.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time of Assemblyman James be extended by a further 10 minutes to conclude his presentation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against say nay. The ayes have it. Member, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you kindly, colleagues. Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer. I only need a few minutes this time. that inasmuch, to make this into one thought, inasmuch as it was the wish of the people of Tobago for union with Trinidad was principally been based on the representation of the government of England and the assurance given to the people of Tobago that material benefits will result to Tobago from such a union, that the Secretary of State for the colonies be respectfully asked that in the event that such a union taking place to afford the people of Tobago that a pledge that should it prove disadvantageous, I want Tobagonians to bear this in mind, that our forefathers in this possibly very house was saying that the time might come when it might be proven disadvantageous for us to continue in this union, that pledge or otherwise find the union undesirable to the majority of the inhabitants, that we shall have the power to petition the British Parliament to return Tobago to where it was. And I want to say to the Parliament again of Trinidad and Tobago, it is your duty. Too much of this football going back and forth over the years, and who's saying that we have to get past this number in the Parliament, and who are 2/3 majority, and all of that kind of craziness. Every part, every place in the world where people have sought self-determination from a colonial ruler has gotten it free and clear in a record short time. Time enough to bring this long-standing matter to an end, and I stand in support of the motion, and I say, thank you, Tobago.